Well, hey, my name is Jeremy Prock, and this is the Mama Tried Flat Out Friday podcast, issue number 22. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
23. But before we begin, we have a guest here, Chuck. We'll get to know him in just a second. There's always a little bit of formalities, Chuck, that we have to go through. The first is, I was just complimenting you, Brian, on your wizardry here of running this podcast, Brian from Geared Science. I'm calling you to, what's the word? Calling you to task here. I'm calling you, because here's one thing. Last time, have you ever heard of bum fights?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, I think it's a moral objective, a morally difficult thing to understand, where people give homeless people drugs and then they have them fight and they record it for money. Okay, it's disgusting at many levels, but philosophically, some people could debate that it's a comment on humanity. But what I'm saying is, when you choke down 40 ounces and make me drink all of this beer, I feel a little bit exploited. Okay, so I'm going to drink this Dr. Pepper. I have an image to uphold as a high school teacher.
The boys at Miller are going to feel this.
And Mr. Jeremy only drinks Dr. Pepper.
Well, the boys at Miller are going to feel this one.
Okay, yeah, sales are going to plummet because of me. Before we begin, Chuck, I'd like to talk a little bit about the update on Mama Tried and Flat Out Friday. I don't know where Scott and Lauren are right now. I have no idea. I don't keep track of them. We're strangers in the night, and they didn't show up here today. But I'm sure they're doing something interesting. All I can speak for is Flat Out Friday. Chuck, are you registered for Flat Out Friday?
Yes, we are in the brakeless class again.
Yeah. When you say we, what do you mean we?
Well, we have Starfire Racing now, which includes my daughter Julia, aka Wonder Woman, my younger brother Greg Dickenson, and then Adam Weiss. So there'll be 4 of us in the brakeless class with our vintage BSAs.
So you guys are like a superhero team.
Yes.
Let's have you come out on Flat Out Friday with smoke, and the Starfire team is here.
That sounds like a very good idea.
And maybe you have this team to block for you. Is that the plan? To kind of block?
I don't think so. We're just going to go out there and we're all going to try individually get to the front of the pack on our own.
Okay.
This is not a rollerball sport. We're out there individually, trying to make your passes clean. You go out there, you have to be responsible for yourself and making sure you're giving other people opportunities to win if they're faster. Fastest guy should win.
So you do that? You give someone else the opportunity if they know they're faster than you? You don't try to block them or stick a leg out, stick your elbows out a little wider?
No, if they're going faster, they're going faster.
Yeah. I appreciate that. That's I appreciate your insight on how racing doesn't have to be so jerky. But hold on to that. I'm going to ask you about these team members of the Starfire Racing team. I want to go back to the Flat Out Friday. I try to give a weekly update. I don't know where we are. We're in mid-December. And again, Flat Out Friday doesn't happen without lots of ticket sales. In fact, 10,000 tickets need to be sold in order to pay the rent for the Pfizer, which is no VFW hall, if you will. This is a serious building with some serious people and some serious responsibility. In conclusion, you can help by buying tickets, and we've done a great job. I think we've done the best we could by getting tickets to circumvent Ticketmaster. You can do that on the link on Instagram. There's a link tree in there that gets you to what's called the Super Savings, and the price that you click on is the price that you pay. So I think it's $33 to the consumer. $33 a ticket is the cheapest you will get into the Pfizer for any event. Regardless of what you think you were paying for, and the tickets say $5, when you actually hit payment, $33 is the cheapest way you'll get into the Pfizer, and that's for Flat Out Friday. And of course, please try group sales. If you buy in group sales of 10 or more, you can circumvent Ticketmaster as well. Riders, if you've signed up, please check your inbox this week. You will have what camera do I look at? Look at this one. You should have a confirmation coming up. We also ask that the riders propagate some language that we would like you to propagate to also push ticket sales. If you are a friend or family or know someone that's racing, you can get a discount. That discount code is coming. All right, and that is the beer opening click to start the interview. All right, hey, Chuck, again, like Freddie, like Carlos, the other guests we've had in the past, JJ, they have no last name. Everybody knows you as Chuck. Chuck, what's your last name?
Dickenson.
That's Enson?
That is correct.
Yeah. And what kind of name is that? Where's that coming from?
I believe it's probably English or Irish. Right. And if you really wanted to go off on a tangent on that.
We always do.
My father was grandfather, would have been my great-grandfather, was a veteran of the Union Army from the Civil War, and he actually received a pension in the 1890s. And doing some genealogy, he had passed in Cook County, Illinois, in the 1890s. He passed, and my great-grandmother and my father ended up in Hudson, Wisconsin. And in 1890, the name was spelled with an I-N-S-O-N.
Okay.
And when they did the census in 1910 in Hudson, Wisconsin, the census taker wrote the name with an E-N-S-O-N. So I found out that there's probably more relatives out in the world with a different spelling.
Yeah. I appreciate it. You can trace your lineage back to the Civil War.
And then if you really want me to go off on another
Okay, let's keep it. Let's go deep.
Because I'm on Facebook, and in Milwaukee, there's quite a bit of flat track in southeast Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
And 2 years ago, Bob Hansen was Tuner Bob.
Yeah.
He had the dealership out of Racine, and then he had BSA motorcycles back in the 50s, and let local guys race. And somebody on one of those sites asked what happened to a Jim Koplinski, who was from Milwaukee, and an Eddie, can't think of his last name offhand. He asked about those two gentlemen, and I thought, I wonder who's asking about these guys. And I looked at his name, and it was a Harold Dickenson in Ohio. And I contacted him, and turns out his father raced motorcycles in Ohio. Harold raced motorcycles in Ohio. And even though we had the last names were spelled different, we ended up to be, there must be something mental in the that goes with the name about.
But you haven't proved that you're related, have you, to these Iowa
No,
folks?
we unfortunately,
Okay.
Harold, I adopted him as a cousin.
Okay. It's okay. Well, so that's interesting that I just pulled out your name out of a hat here, and it actually has these deep dive stories. I think what everybody's thinking, and why part of the reason why you're famous, this isn't the only reason why you're famous, if you will, but you're famous because you're charismatic and you race motorcycles and you have this very positive energy when you're at the racetrack. That's why you're famous. But secondly, people are interested in your age. And I don't know, do you want to say your age? Because I think your age grows.
I was born in 1940, so my last birthday was 82. So I'm very fortunate that I can do the things I do.
At 82?
At 82.
I remember seeing you race at Beaver Cycle Club. You probably don't remember this. Because I remember you getting knocked out at Beaver Cycle Club. Do you remember this? This was a couple of years ago.
That's happened, yes.
And you made it to the main. Do concussions are they not an issue for you? What do you think?
Well, maybe maybe I don't know better. I mean, I don't suffer any dizziness or any more loss of memory than most people my age.
Okay. Do you have any residuals from years of flat track?
Well, I know which leg is my left leg.
Okay, you always manage to sum it up in the fewest words possible. Now that's assuming you have a long history. When did you start flat tracking?
Well, I actually started racing motorcycles in 1962, so that would be 60 years ago.
Okay, actually hold on to that. Let's mark that. I'm going to write that down. 1962 was the year you started racing, right?
Yes.
Before that, you must have had a bug. And what I've asked all of the guests is, how did you get a dirty thumb?
Well, when I was 12 years old, we moved to southeast Wisconsin near Hartford on Freeze Lake.
So you moved from where?
Hudson, Wisconsin.
Okay, so all right, so your lineage went from Cook County to Hudson, Wisconsin, to Freeze Lake, which is just north of Milwaukee.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And
at 12 years old.
Well, Freeze Lake was a very small community there was a lot of summer homes, but there was a small core of year-round homes, maybe I'm going to say a dozen or 15 families. And, at that point, was there 3 television stations? Not every home had a television.
Sure.
Not every home had a telephone. So you really knew your neighbors. So I was, per chance or however those things work, one of the neighbors was a Dick Courtney. And Dick, at that time, I think he'd just gotten married. He was, I was 12 years old. Dick was probably 18, married, starting a family, working. But I think deep down, he's a small boy, just like some of us tend to stay our whole lives.
Sure.
And he and some friends had motorcycles. And I guess it just, you're 12 years old and you have a bicycle and somebody else has got a motorcycle. You know what you want to gravitate to.
Sure. So that you saw these guys riding around the neighborhood?
Oh, yeah. And I think that was after the Second World War. Excuse me a second.
I hear you. I'd drink a beer with you, but I'm off the sauce.
They had import English motorcycles that were lightweight dirt bikes. So
they were specifically made for off-road at that time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They were not street legal?
Well, at that point in time, they were on them on the street.
Okay.
Nowadays it wouldn't work, but then it was,
okay.
They were probably licensed. They were probably street legal, but, the world's changed.
Sure.
Those guys just, late teens and early 20s, just kind of like, boy, someday I'll have a job and I'll be able to buy myself a motorcycle. So it was, and Dick lived in the neighborhood and he was just a very charismatic person. And my friend and I, Richard, would go over there when he was in the garage and he'd just invite us in and make us one of the boys. Just a terribly fond memory of my childhood.
And it was a healthy environment. He showed you like, hey, I'm putting this carburetor on, or I'm changing this tire. And he gave you that skill or that knowledge base?
Yeah. I mean, he shared whatever he was doing. And actually, at one point, he became a writer for Bob Hansen. When Bob, I think the first year he raced in 1955, he wrote an Indian for Bob Hansen.
At flat track?
On flat track.
Was there a pro series at that time?
Yeah, it was AMA Pro.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wrote, Bob Hansen went to BSAs. And he wrote Bob Hansen's BSAs. I think in 1958, Dick had done well enough on that AMA Pro circuit that his first year expert, they gave him an expert number without a letter, which
Was
pretty
great.
unheard of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Heard
yeah.
of. So
And at that time, all I know about that time period is from that movie on Any Sunday. So he's running he's running those off-road courses, he's running those dirt tracks, he's running the road race. Is that right?
yes,
That was the series.
yep,
Yeah.
yes.
And you became a fan, or were you part of his team?
Well, I became a fan. He would, he was racing locally. He'd let us ride with him and go to the bleachers or
Sure.
sneak into the pits or whatever. I mean, he was, he was just that type of person that wanted to share, and he's more than glad to help you
Mhm.
get there.
What did your parents think of this?
They probably weren't overly thrilled with the idea that it seemed to be fixated on two wheels, but I guess they were smart enough to realize that if you don't make an issue out of it, maybe it goes away.
Sure. Okay. So you were hanging out with him for a couple of years. Now you're 16, 17, and your adolescence here, your late adolescence. Do you get a job or something in the?
Well, I ended up being married at 18
So how did you guys meet? High school? She was from
in high
Phoenix area?
school. We went to Hartford High School.
I went to Hartford High School. I graduated from Hartford High School myself, 91.
But the high school I went to now is a parking lot.
Okay. Okay.
I think there was 75 kids when I graduated.
You got a great. You're very articulate about this, so I want to zoom in because you have you can. I think you can tell me this. Tell me a little bit more about you meeting your wife. Where, did you guys go to a dance or something? How did you know? How did you know this was the one for 64 years?
I guess we just enjoyed each other's company, and whatever drives people to decide they're a couple. And I graduated from high school, and had got a couple part-time jobs and had a little money, and I guess we just felt that being a couple would make us feel more comfortable about life than other than not.
So were there any sparks? Were there any? Was there any? Hearts around your head when you guys?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I guess we were childs in love, and
Sure.
we've stayed in love. And
Okay.
the world changes around you.
Oh,
but
for sure.
basically, deep down, you're still the same people.
So you got a part-time job. You guys got married. You guys have your own place then, or you lived?
We bought a house trailer.
Okay. It's okay.
Yeah, we lived in a house.
18. I can only imagine 18. I would call anybody that I know under 30 a kid. Right? I can't imagine anybody I know under 30 getting married. Does this make sense? So 18, just out of high school, and you decided to get married. This already is a bit of a shock to me. But anyway, so you bought a home.
Yeah, and then I think about 3 days after we got married, the job I had, they terminated my employment, and my mother-in-law, bless her heart, had a friend that her husband worked for Metal Spinners Incorporated, and they were the type of company that would hire people with no experience. So I applied there, and by whatever good grace, they employed me, and I went to work there. It turned out to be a pretty good job, and it was, I walked into the shop not knowing anything about it, and looked around what they were doing. I thought, I could learn how to do this.
Okay.
And I decided, if I learn how to do this, I'll have a steady employment.
Mhm.
The wages are good.
What was the wage back then?
I think $1.50 an hour.
Okay. And
That was a
that's
big
good
deal.
money.
A big deal. Like the top guy in the shop was making $3 an hour.
Yeah.
$24 a day. That was.
And metal spinning is like how they make cymbals, like on a drum set.
Well, we basically any ductable sheet metal.
Ductable.
It has to be steel, aluminum, copper. brass.
What does ductile mean?
Well, it'll move, it'll bend.
Okay.
I mean, there are some materials
that don't move. They're inflexible.
that move.
Steel is not flexible.
Well, it's ductile.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't take metals 101. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you take most like sheet metal, you can bend it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's,
Okay, so ductile metal is like the millimeter width of it.
yeah, and you know, aluminum is and there are different grades of steel and
Okay, sure,
aluminum.
sure. Okay, all right.
So it's like I could say aluminum, but if you don't have the right grade, you know, there's some types of aluminum that do not move, and there are others that are so soft you can.
Sure. And so, what kinds of functional things did you make then?
Oh, we make a lot of air movement parts, round air movement parts, venturis and such like that. Big round lamp reflectors are formed by spinning. Because we take the flat sheet and it rotates on the lathe. We change its shape to whatever the mold is we have on the lathe.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching a potter work with clay,
Mm-hmm.
they keep changing the shape as it turns.
Mm-hmm.
We basically doing the same thing with sheet metal.
Well, what I'm doing right now, I'm just realizing you still have that job.
I had my own business.
Did you buy that company?
No, I decided I bought some used machinery at an auction and decided that if I'm working this hard for somebody else, maybe I could work this hard for myself.
It'll get you punched in the face, though, won't it? Wasn't your own boss mad?
I probably wasn't too happy about it, but I didn't consult him, and I don't think I ever talked to him.
Okay. And so you learned this skill, and you're like, I'm gonna do this on my own, and you've been doing it ever since.
Yep. 53 years.
Is there someone else in the industry that knows more than you?
Well, probably.
Really?
Well, how many people do you think invented the wheel on the same day in the world?
Okay, I like your perspective.
I mean, you know, there was a time when people in this country thought the Americans were the only ones that could ever build this or invent this.
Sure.
And, you know, we're all got the same mental capability no matter where we're at.
Sure. That makes sense. I appreciate the perspective.
You know?
So you growing up in your formative years, your late teens, early 20s, you're working. You have kids at that time then? You're married?
I had my daughter right away, of course.
Okay.
The world was different.
Wait, this is your daughter Julia who's working?
Yep.
Or is racing?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. With another interview, by the way. And you got other kids?
Well, my daughter Kimberly that's sitting over here in the corner.
Okay.
And then my son Charles, who was on the racetrack with me for a number of years.
So Kimberly, do you race, Kim? Do you ever race?
No, I've never raced.
Okay. You ride a motorcycle?
I've ridden a motorcycle.
Okay.
Yeah, we grew up around the bikes and on the bikes and being part of the pit crew.
So this Dick fella was quite an inspiration.
Yes, very nice man.
It not only did it change your trajectory as a young boy, it changed the trajectory of a generation.
True. And see, unfortunately, Dick met his demise in an motorcycle accident
On the street.
And I think at that time, he and his wife had 5 children. And the youngest one was only about 2 weeks old when that happened. A few years back, I reached out and got in touch with the family, and that son Jeff Courtney and I have become very good friends. Jeff is into sports car racing, and he has his own Badger Wheel and Tire.
Okay.
He sells lots of tires. I mean, he's a big distributor, but it's kind of funny that Jeff and I have become very good friends in the last 5 years
Sure.
after a 50-some year space.
Yeah. So there's a little history too, isn't there, with your number? Your number, is it 68?
26.
26. It was close. 26. Well, there's a history there. Is that Dick's number?
Yes, 26 was Dick's Nationals number.
Got it.
So he had that Nationals number 1958, 1959, and 1960.
26. I'm going to forget that. I got a lot of numbers here. You're 82. And this is your race number is 26.
But, Dick decided with his growing family that he was better off doing other things than trying to race motorcycles.
So he got a real job.
Oh yeah, he always worked. I mean, as childish as those guys could act in the garage, they all got up and went to work.
Sure. All right. So you're in your formative years here. You didn't tell. I hallmarked the time when you started racing motorcycles. So now you're 12, new married, new family, new job. Where in there did you start to take on your own motorcycle identity?
Well, I guess my wife knew that I had a very keen desire and interest in
Had
motorcycles.
you, in your high school, had you owned a motorcycle?
No,
Oh, okay.
I didn't own a motorcycle until I was 22 years old.
Okay. It was a what?
1955 Zundap. And
I don't know. I don't have my Google.
then, well, that came about because we had a 1948 Rocket 98 Oldsmobile convertible, and for whatever reason, my wife saw an ad in the paper where somebody wanted to trade a motorcycle for a car, and we pursued it. So I traded that car for the motorcycle.
Street legal motorcycle that you drove to work and drove around, right?
And took the lights off and the
Okay.
fenders off and
And then what?
went out in the cow pasture and decided it was a race bike.
Okay. And you entered races?
Yes.
What kind of racing? What's the racing?
Well,
scene?
that was called scrambles then because most of the tracks were ungraded. Like I say, there was a track down by Eagle in an old gravel pit, out by Elkhorn, or I can't think. I think it became a motocross track. There used to be a scrambles track. I think Milwaukee Motorcycle Club.
So talk me through what it's like when you go to your first race. You know, is there a crowd? How do you do something for classes like you do now? I mean,
Oh yeah, there was by cubic cc's, 200 cc's.
It didn't matter your experience or your age.
No. But unfortunately, my 8 horsepower Zundap really wasn't competitive in the class.
By the way, you traded an Oldsmobile for it.
But I think the first race there was a couple of hills in it, and I actually had to get off and run and push the motorcycle to get over the hill.
Is there a crowd watching?
Well, it just the people that showed up to race, and maybe a few of their friends.
Sure.
But there was no grandstands.
Was there a cash prize?
No, I think they were given. I've still got some of the little 4-inch high wood trophies, AMA on it, and I look at those now, and it's like those are really neat. A lot of guys over the years, discard them, so there's not really a lot of them.
Were they made out of wood?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see one of these.
Yeah.
So you must have stuck with it, and you got good at it at this scrambles race.
Yes.
And you would travel around Wisconsin.
Yeah, mostly just southeast Wisconsin.
You must have gotten better. You must have gotten a new motorcycle.
Well, 1962, I bought a brand new 250 BSA,
Okay.
which was very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So
And what do you think that was?
the price?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, 500
Off the showroom floor.
$548.65.
And your wife didn't bat an eye.
No, actually, we bought that 2 weeks after she went to work at Briggs and Stratton.
Okay, so she knew she had an income coming in. So now you're on this BSA. You're still running the local circuits,
Yes.
winning?
Well, I think I won the state championship in 1964. Yeah, 1964.
How do you win a state championship? So there's
Well, in those days, one club would get the state championship. So it was just one race, one day, at whatever club, for whatever reason, they let them have that sanction.
so you won other races.
Oh,
along
yes.
the way. Yeah. So this was your first win, and so don't disrespect your championship.
No. But it was a neat, and the guys, everybody there had the same thing in mind.
Sure. How many people are you racing against?
Oh, it was probably 5 to 7. It wasn't a huge class, but still, the guys I beat were pissed off and didn't talk to me. So
A story as old as time. So you're in the 250 class?
yes,
Yep. And there's a bigger classes?
yeah, they had the 500 and 650s.
People are on 650s in these cornfield gravel pits.
Yes.
So you continue with this sport, and it must eventually become flat track. Right?
Yeah. Well, I think 1967 or 68, I had an AMA competition license, and then you go down to like Santa Fe Park.
Okay.
Run Wednesday night short tracks, but you go down there and there'd be 80 guys signed up.
It was a nice track.
Yeah, and very, very competitive field, and
Wednesday night. And you're coming from Freeze Lake.
yes,
So 2-3 hour drive?
yeah, about 2.5.
Yeah. And and then you got to get back to work to spin some metal the next day, and you don't even make the program.
That's right.
Yeah.
You do it because you love it.
Well, so when you say I had an AMA competitive license, doesn't that kind of mean you're a third level pro? Is that?
Yeah. Well, then you would be a novice. Everybody started out as a novice ranks, and at that point in time, novices can only ride 250s.
Okay. Did you move up from that?
No.
So
That's when I decided to take my money and go into business.
what was your last year then running at that stint?
1968.
1968. You took a break then?
Well, I've had motorcycles every year, and then I think in the 70s I bought a Penton KTM and went out and rode enduros for quite a few years.
Competitively.
Well, enduros are competitive.
I mean, but
it's not like flat track, but you go out and they lay out an 80-mile course, mostly off road through up northern Wisconsin through the forest preserves.
They still do that. I don't think they do 80 miles. There's just not the land rights anymore.
No, it's different. I went over and rode the Jack Pine a couple times. It was 400 miles in 2 days.
Wait, hang on. What do you mean over to the Jack Pine? Is that in Wisconsin?
That's in Michigan. They used to run that like Labor Day weekend.
It's a 400-mile race off road.
Yeah.
You did this?
Yeah.
How old were you when you did this?
Oh, 32 or something.
You were 32 years old.
Yeah, 35 maybe.
Because I didn't get my dates. You could have said 1932, and I got to quick do the math. But hang on, now pause this hair scrambles. What was your best finish? When were you at your prime of flat track? When were you were a cocky young kid? And,
probably in the 60s.
yeah. Do you have a moment in time you can remember? A year or a race or an experience?
Well, I think just in 1964 when I won that state championship.
Yeah.
I thought, I got it figured out now. But
Look how the state champs coming through.
But you like you said before, you got to be humble about it because everybody else is out there with the same mindset.
Sure, it was your night. It was your night that day.
Yes.
What at Santa Fe? Do you have any good races?
Well, I think they used to have Friday night TTs. I think I had a second or third on a TT one night.
And you won a little wood trophy.
Oh, I think I got $25 that night.
Whoa, that's almost a half week's work.
You know, at that time I was not quite a day's wages, but
So then you decided to race hare scrambles, or you're racing woods. Was it called hare scrambles?
enduros.
Enduros. And you do that through this 70s, 80s?
Yeah, I think I gave. I guess for whatever reason it started becoming not just getting ready to go and stuff. I just decided now I'm going to do something else on the weekends for a while.
Sure.
And just, you know, I had motorcycles and I would ride off road. I had some property to ride on.
In Freeze Lake?
Menominee Falls.
Okay. Are you still in Freeze Lake?
No. Close, but not there.
Oh, you live by my parents.
Richfield.
Richfield, Colgate area.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you ride out there?
Yeah, we converted the soybean field into a racetrack.
You have it right now? I mean, you haven't told us about this before?
Well,
We won't tell anybody.
if you drive by on Sunday, you'll see us.
Okay. That's not an invitation. All right, so you there was a renaissance, if you will. You came back to racing.
Well, in
Competitively.
I think in 2000. Shit, we just changed the calendar to 2000.
Pre-COVID is hard to remember.
What was that, like 2007 or 2008? I found out about eBay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at eBay, and I was looking at used motorcycles, and I was looking at flat track motorcycles. And lo and behold, there was a BSA flat tracker and a Sonic Weld frame
Mm-hmm. That's
with number plates.
a Sonic World frame. So that's like someone had a company at that time and made that frame.
That's right.
And at that time, that name was prestigious.
Yes. Rigid 250 BSA motor.
Yeah.
That was the hot setup in 1968.
Okay.
And for whatever possessed me, I showed my wife, and she said, and it's like, you know, I'm thinking I'm going to put a bid in on this.
She said this.
No, I did.
Okay, you did.
And then she said, well, go ahead. And I ended up, I wasn't too good with the thing, but I thought I put the bid in, and then I watched it, and it got down to the end, and I won, and I thought, my gosh, $350 got that. I'm really surprised. And then I went back and looked, and the price was $3,500.
Well, wait. So did you get it for $350?
No, I got it for $3,500.
Oh, okay. Was it worth that?
Oh yeah.
So you still think?
Oh yeah. I mean, it got bidded up that high. I was, you know, you go and you think, well, if I can get this for nothing, I'll buy it.
Sure.
So, and then I thought about that, and I said, you know, there's a destiny in this.
Mm-hmm.
This was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I called up my good friend Matt McNall, that I've known and raced with for the last 60 years. And I said, well, guess what I bought? And we talked, and he said, well, you know, at Asdaland, they have a brakeless class now. You got to get that running and get it out to Asdaland. He says, you know, I think I'm going to get my bike running too.
Okay.
So it was destiny.
And so, and then 2007. How old are you then? I do the math on it.
67.
67, and you decide you're going to go back to flat tracking. And so you roll into Ascalon, and what do you see? How are you treated? How are you welcomed?
Well, everybody's glad to see me. the guys, the 50-year-olds and the super seniors wanted to see my driver's license.
Because they didn't believe you were that old?
They didn't, yeah, they thought I was cheating.
Okay. Who's this 40-year-old in here? Okay. And you, so that's 2007. That's right around the time I started with my son. And you have been racing regularly every weekend, right? Is that fair to say? Since
Yeah.
then, since 2007.
Yeah.
Including this past summer.
That's correct.
Yeah. And always in the brakeless class.
Well, and I ride the master's class, which is 60 plus the last 5 years.
Which is a Wisconsin phenomenon.
And then, yeah, and then also the super seniors, the 50 plus class. So,
That's a tougher class.
yeah, they keep getting younger.
Yeah. That's going to be my class soon. I remember trying to not get lapped in the 40-year-old class. I'm going to try to not get lapped in the 50-year-old class. All right, so I thought, and this is just a story, a different story than I thought it was going to go. I'm not going to tell you how I thought it went. Not any less interesting. I just didn't know these things about you. I didn't know that you were so tied to Ascalon so long, and that you started that long ago. Anyway, in summary, let's pause. Let's pause your flat tracking, your racing career. I want to go back with this job thing, which I think is pretty interesting. Your job, you ended up buying this, and you currently run this metal spinning thing, this metal spinning business. Is this lucrative?
Made a living for 54 years.
Why is the Asian market not knocked you out?
Well, because we do small quantities, we do a pretty wide range of parts. I'm happy to make 4 or 5 pieces for somebody. Because the way we do it, we have to make the parts one piece at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not going to tell somebody, I don't want to make it one piece.
Mm-hmm.
So, we just, I guess we just, and our customers like the work we do. I guess what you want to do is you want to make sure that the customer's getting value for the money they spend.
Why not retire and go down to Daytona for Bike Week and race the brakeless class, or run the ARMA class?
I guess I've got good employees. I enjoy working with them. It's in the shop. I feel it's camaraderie like going to the racetrack. Why would you not go to the racetrack?
Sure. So you enjoy your job?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so. Yeah, you retire, you sell the business, all of a sudden you're limited to what you can do. I see no sunset.
Sure. What's your wife do? Does she work?
Yeah, she in the office and
so she works there also.
yeah.
Did she work there the whole time?
Oh yeah.
This is a true love story. Because I see her at the track, I see her, and you work with her. I have no idea where my wife is today or anything, and we have to stay strictly apart because when we're together, it's already too much of each other. So it's a great love story. It's great to see you guys together, and then your family to be a part of it. Your family's here.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that
Mm-hmm.
my family is that close. Not that there probably isn't a little bit of differences of opinion on things or stuff, but I guess, it's the end of the day, you gotta love those that are close to you.
Sure. All right, so let's move to modern times. How did we do on history here? How did we do with history? Did we sum it up? Is there any other highlights in there that you want to mention about your up until now? You started racing in 1962, went to hare scrambles, took on flat track in 2007 till now. Is there any other highlights in there?
No, it's been a fun ride. It's a fun bunch of people. I mean, you and your family, and so many good families out there. It's unbelievable, the community.
Yeah, I hear you. That's what I try to make Flat Out Friday. It's basically modeled after what Ascalon is. Of course we're competing, but we're ultimately cheering for each other's well-being. And we started in motocross, me and my son, and I didn't feel that community in motocross. Is that fair?
I think it's fair. I rode a little motocross, and it was, I guess, it was different, and and I don't want to say anything bad about
Sure,
that
I'm not saying anything bad.
But
I just felt a stronger connection to the flat track community. And I
it's just, smaller group, and I think, maybe that's what makes it easier.
Sure. All right, so I want to move to modern times, and because you had a rather heroic race with Flat Out Pride. Do you remember this? The first event, or wasn't the first event? It was the second or third event. You won. Yeah.
2018.
2018. Where were you?
Where was I?
Yeah. What mean? Wait, where was? Yeah, I have the notes here. August 31st. Because was 2018 the
Harley
deal? Yeah.
That was, what was super fun about that night? I did, winning was fun. Why it was fun? Well, I had, if you look on the front of my PSA, I've got a rubber duck with a helmet.
Yeah.
And one of my fans gave that to me a couple years before.
You have fans.
Yeah, I have a very special fan. Was Lynn, and she has got Down syndrome, and she's like 55 years old. And Flat Out Friday is her favorite thing on earth.
I think I've met Lynn. I think I met her at the Harley Davidson Museum. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
And then her uncle came by me and says, I got a young lady who wants to give you something. And I says, well, it'll be fine. And he brings over and she hands me this rubber ducky. Because one of the previous events I had fallen on my head. She was worried about me all year. And she was so glad to see me. And, it was so sweet. So then at that Flat Out Friday, I went up to the lobby and I wanted to see her, because I knew she was there. Well, now I get all these, there was people there from Poland and Germany, and they all wanted pictures of me. It's like, oh my God.
Do you like that or do you not like that?
It was fun. I mean, it was fun because they were there and they were acting excited, and, it wasn't something I expected. And, there was people from, all different places in the world. They were all, we gotta have a picture with you. And it's like, oh my God.
You photograph well. Is that fair to say? Is that fair to say? You photograph well.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's 4 or 5 years later, and, they go to the picture and they say, and I remember that. That was such a fun night. We ought to go back again.
And how we started this is you are coming back again. You're signed up in the brakeless class. And I'm going to make a bold statement. When I make the classes, I always make a class for you.
Thank you.
Is that fair? Because the brakeless class is hard to find. I think it's one of the few classes that are still open. I think we only have 7 people signed up for the brakeless class. And so in the past, instead of scraping to try to beg people to show up, I changed it to the senior class.
Yeah.
But then some brakeless people were upset. They got really mad that I changed it, so I went back to the brakeless.
Oh, well, I would think that would get filled up. I mean,
well, let's get some more. Put the word up. Brakeless class is still open if you want to race against Chuck. I think you've always been a bit of a smart, wise person. Where do you think you get this wise from? This being wise, this articulate with knowledge and energy and spirit. You seem to summarize or sum up things. You have a couple of quotes. We started out with a quote. If someone's faster than me, I just let them by. And I think that articulates the community of flat track. But you also said, if you expect to win every time, then go play checkers with 4-year-olds. Is that what you said?
yes.
Are these your quotes or what? Where are they going from these things?
Well,
we were some race and some young guy was complaining because he didn't win. And it's like, it's that important, go find some place you can win at.
Sure.
Don't expect it out here in the track with your peers. I mean, we're all out here for the same reason.
Yeah, that's what I want to zoom in on. What you're saying is, if the winning is the reason why you're here, then do something else, because a win is not guaranteed in competition.
That's correct.
That's correct. And if you are winning all the time, then you probably need to move up a class.
Or some people have that ability. They have the mechanical knowledge to, make sure their equipment is prepped and ready.
Sure.
And, well, those guys are outstanding. You gotta appreciate when you see them on the track.
I appreciate your appreciation. I appreciate your appreciation. Okay, well, so tell me about your vision, your wisdom of the current state of what Mama Tried and Flat Out Friday is trying to do. I'm not fishing for compliments. I just want you to put some historical perspective on what we're trying to do. Does that make sense? So how do you see Flat Out Friday, and what does it mean?
Well, to me, it's a great venue because you attract people in this area and expose them to the community of motorcycle racing. I think it's put on in a very good light. I've had people that expressed disappointment that I didn't tell them that it was happening because they would have been there.
Well, please, please tell them.
Well, I do, but I mean, sometimes I feel like, this is me blowing my whistle for attention or something, talking about this event because I'm going to do it. But then, when all of a sudden somebody says, gee, I would have known, and
Sure.
It's like, well, that's great. And then the people that have gone there say they can't wait for the next one.
Sure. What about the Mama Tried and the chopper culture and the customizing culture? What do you think about that?
Well, it's a great. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people in that, and the world is full of people that have different interests,
Mm-hmm.
and to showcase that and have these people bring that stuff, and you guys be able to show that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those guys have got to be very happy that you do that for them.
Well, how about do you feel that we didn't earn? That you have a long pedigree of racing. I only have it through a parent. I mean, do you feel that this is maybe disingenuous or it's too young? I mean, is there any bad taste in your mouth when you look at the history of motorcycling?
No.
Does that make sense? No? Okay.
No,
So my point is we're doing it right. Do we have your okay? Do we have your blessing?
You got my blessing.
Okay. That's what I was looking for ultimately. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up. It's been almost an hour here. Yes? Yeah.
Over now.
Okay. So I got to remind people, if you have a question for Chuck for Starfire Racing, how do they get a hold of you, Starfire Racing? Where do you, are you on social media? You on TikTok?
Yeah, Chuck
Snapchat?
Dickenson. Or wait, what do you got, Kim?
Starfire.racing on Instagram.
Got it. Starfire.racing on Instagram. You can see Chuck and his family there. Yes, the whole crew.
Yep.
I didn't even ask you, who's this Adam fellow?
My brother's stepson.
How old is this guy?
20, 21.
And he's racing brakeless.
Yes.
Is he any good?
He's learning.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I gotta remind you that so when you get a hold of Starfire Racing, you can get him on Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for our podcast here on YouTube. You can always comment in the YouTube section. You can also comment on our social media once this goes up in a week or so. So thanks a lot, Chuck Dickenson.
Pleasure.